Salam Sejahtera, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to you and also to our speaker for today, Professor Datuk Dr. John Anthony Xavier. Welcome to another edition of Competitiveness Talk organized by Malaysia Productivity Corporation. And thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar today. Our talk this afternoon is the 39th of our continuing series of webinars focusing on Malaysia's competitiveness, performance and ranking as assessed and reported yearly by international organizations. IMD, short for the International Institute for Management Development, published this performance and rank in their World Competitiveness Yearbook, and so do the World Economic Forum in their Global Competitiveness Report. In the recent World Competitiveness Yearbook 2020, Malaysia's competitiveness ranking has slipped to 27th position from 22nd in 2019 out of 63 countries assessed by IMD. This overall competitiveness score and rank is calculated based on 255 criteria measuring different dimensions of an economy's competitiveness. Two-thirds of the criteria use hard data or hard statistics obtained from international and national sources, and one-third uses survey data obtained from an executive opinion survey aimed at respondents from the middle and senior management levels of the private sector. The 255 criteria are categorized into the 4 competitiveness factors of economic performance, government efficiency, business efficiency, and infrastructure. In our talk this afternoon, Datuk John will be speaking on rebuilding foreign investor confidence in times of uncertainty in relation to a criterion in the government efficiency factor which measures foreign investor control over domestic companies. I'm sure Datuk John will elaborate further and enlighten us on this important aspect of competitiveness that can certainly make a significant contribution to our national output and grow the wealth and prosperity of our nation in the long term. Now, let me first introduce our esteemed speaker before handing over the session to him. Professor Datuk Dr. John Anthony Xavier was a career civil servant for 36 years with the Malaysian government as an administrative and diplomatic officer, serving in various management capacities in ministries and departments, including the Inland Revenue Department, Ministry of International Trade and Industry, Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Primary Industries, Ministry of Finance, the National Institute of Public Administration, and the Public Service Department. As a master trainer, Datuk John has conducted training for senior civil servants at the National Institute of Public Administration. His current training includes leadership, public service reform, public policy analysis, and case study development. As an academic, he has researched and published over 30 refereed articles on public management reform, including performance management and the Blue Ocean Strategy. He teaches corporate strategy and public policy. He has also authored 6 books on law, competitiveness, and public management, and co-authored book chapters. His latest book, published in 2017, is titled Competitiveness: What Government and Businesses Should Do. At the international level, Datuk John has worked as the United Nations Development Programme's resident consultant to the government of Kuwait in performance budgeting and performance management system. He has undertaken training and development in case study development and leadership in Kenya and Nigeria under the auspices of the Commonwealth Association for Public Administration. And he has trained over 200 senior Sri Lankan civil servants on strategic planning and performance management on behalf of the Commonwealth Secretariat. Datuk John has also worked as a consultant to the IMF, World Bank, Asian Productivity Corporation and Management, and also the Arab Administrative and Development Organization in the domains of public budgeting, performance management, and organizational design. With that, I now hand over the session to our speaker. Over to you, Datuk.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Wong, for a very lovely and kind introduction. Please allow me at the outset to say good afternoon to our members of our audience today who are online with us. Welcome. I wish to share my thoughts on this topic that's of very central importance today, given that our foreign direct investments are going down and that is obviously because of the pandemic. Also, I must record my thanks and appreciation to the Malaysia Productivity Corporation for kindly inviting me to give this short presentation, and for the confidence that they have in me to elaborate further on this topic as to how we can enhance investor confidence, especially during this time of uncertainty. So we shall discuss the following in the course of our presentation. But please, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me anytime, and that way we can have an interaction. We would then now discuss first, what is the current ranking in the World Economic Yearbook, World Competitiveness Yearbook of the IMD 2020 on the indicator of investor control over domestic acquisitions. This relates to what extent do investors, we are talking about foreign investors, to what extent do foreign investors have a control over the domestic acquisition of our companies? And then we will see what are the factors that account for this current position. Are we very high in the rank? Are we very low? Actually, we are low. And then we will go on to examine some of the recommendations to improve this ranking for this indicator, investor control over their investments, and how we can enhance the comparative ranking of this indicator, because this indicator is one of the 334 indicators that the IMD uses to rank a particular country in its competitiveness ranking. So let's start. Well, here we are. Foreign investor confidence has fallen 20% over the last 5 years. That has been primarily because investors are not free to acquire control in domestic companies. So we can see that over the past 5 years, we have lost some 20% in terms of the erosion of the rank, and our rank has been this year it is 53. In 2016, that was the highest. We were 43. So there has been a 20% erosion of our ranking for this particular indicator, meaning that, by the way, this is a soft data, meaning it is a data that is compiled through responses from a questionnaire given to named or selected respondents who have to respond. Do you have control over the companies that you invest in? Of course, there is some control, but are they happy to have that level of control? So the level of control is a broad spectrum. Say it goes from 49% to 100%. Preferably, our foreign investors would like to have full equity participation and 100% control. But that is not to be the case, and that is the reason why we have been ranked a little poorly, 43 among the nations comprising 163 economies. So we have been falling over the last 5 years, and we need to do something to arrest this position. Otherwise, we might lose the capacity and the ability to attract foreign direct investors. Everybody who comes in to invest would definitely want to have control over their investments. But this has to be balanced with the national interest. I mean, we cannot totally open the doors in especially in strategic sectors like oil and gas. So we still need to have some control. Wherein lies the balance? Investors want 100% control. The government wants to make sure that it also has some control over investments, especially in strategic areas. And we'll see what these are in the coming slides. If you see it over the last 10 years, then we are looking at foreign investors. Again, the change in ranking has been 21. The maximum, the minimum is 32, the maximum is 53. That means we were 32 somewhere in 2014, but today we are, what are we, 22? We are 53. So we have gone down in terms of our ranking, even over the last 10 years. So and this time, the times are trying because of the pandemic. FDIs are estimated to decline 50% throughout the whole world, and this is the estimate given by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. So they expect that FDIs to decline across the board throughout the world at 40%, decline by 40%. The world economy will contract by 5%. And Malaysia, it has been estimated that FDIs will be halved. That means last year we attracted 100 million. This year we would only be able to attract 50 million. So there's going to be a 50% drop in FDIs into Malaysia. And this is in keeping with the overall global trends. And this decline is not surprising because net FDIs, our investments, minus the investments that have been coming in from overseas, have been falling since 2017. So we must do something to arrest this decline so that we will have more investments coming in the years ahead, because foreign direct investments are very fundamental to our nation. They bring in technology, they bring in, of course, capital, they bring in talent, they help provide jobs, and when we invite quality investments, they bring in quality technology, and that will get us to level up our talent to the exacting demands of the foreign direct investments, and that would result in better wages for our more skilled employees. And of course, FDIs are important because our local suppliers can be plugged into the supply chain, and they will have a ready source of business. And of course, the demands imposed by foreign investors will elevate the quality of their supplies. So there's so many benefits that are involved in bringing FDIs into the country, and therefore it is very important that we enhance their confidence and see to what extent we can give in to whatever they want. So before we go into the factors contributing to the current state of play, and before we look at some of the recommendations, let us quickly look at the authorities and regulations. Well, we've got a number of authorities that are involved either directly or indirectly in investor control of domestic acquisitions and investor confidence on the economy and in respect of Malaysia's business ecosystem. Of course, we've got the Malaysian Companies Commission. The Companies Act 2016 requires every company domiciled in Malaysia to be registered as under the Companies Act. And the Companies Act is very important because it will help us determine what is the procedures that are involved to starting a company and whether these procedures can be simplified. Then we have this personal property securities registration to protect minority investors, which basically means that companies who charge their assets must declare that collateral or that charge with the Malaysian Companies Commission. Then, of course, we have got the two prime movers of foreign direct investments. They are MITI and MIDA, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. And I'm sorry, it's very heavy thunder and rain here. and MIDA, Malaysian Industrial Development Authority. And of course, together, MITI is policy, MIDA is implementation, and the number of acts that they manage are the Promotion of Investment Act, that it outlines the investment promotion incentives that are given to a company that wants to invest in Malaysia. We've got the Investment Coordination Act. This is for manufacturing licenses. Then we have investor guarantee agreements to protect investor interests. Then we have schedule of specific commitments on trade in services, again, that specifies ownership in services. Then we have a national committee for approval of investments in the services sector. We also have one in the manufacturing sector, but we also have another in the services sector where MIDA determines which companies get their approval. And we have also an incentive coordination and collaboration office, which seeks to improve the central coordination of all incentives given to all multivariate companies that have come to invest. We've got pioneer status, we've got Bionaxis, we've got a host of incentives. So MIDA has got a committee, a collaboration office to streamline and to make sure that all these incentives are well coordinated. And of course, for manufacturing, MIDA offers a one-stop center for investors to seek approval for all applications to set up factories and company. So we have one for services sector, and we have a one-stop center for the manufacturing sector. This is MIDA and MITI. Then we have the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Ministry. They regulate the multimedia, the communications and multimedia industry. Then we have got the various ministries, such as the Ministry of Health. They will approve foreign investments in services sector with no foreign equity limits. So where we have services sector where foreigners can own 100% equity, in those cases, the relevant ministries can give the approval. Then, of course, we've got a whole host of investment agencies, Invest KL, Invest Penang. We've got all the regional corridors, and every one of them is in the business of promoting investments in their particular region. Primarily, they bring in multinational companies to set up their regional offices, for example, in Greater Kuala Lumpur, and they try to support the growth of MNCs in Asia and beyond, because we want them to stay for a long time in Malaysia, because we need them. And of course, investment promotion is across the 3 tiers of government. We have the federal government, MITI and MIDA, and we have state governments and local authorities also undertaking promotion for investments for their particular states. And that is why we see states sending out investment missions. Sometimes they join forces with MIDA mission, but every one of them has the larger purpose to bring in foreign direct investments. And the best way to do it is to provide the conducive ecosystem for the FDIs, so that they have and they can retain the confidence in Malaysia as a investment haven. Then, of course, we have Petronas. Petronas is also involved, because Petronas has got the sole legal right to all of Malaysia's crude oil and gas deposits. And Petronas restricts foreign ownership to 49%. We will see this later on. Then we have the Foreign Investment Committee. Now we don't need any Foreign Investment Committee approval since 2009 for acquisitions, mergers, takeovers of local companies by domestic or foreign parties. So the foreign direct investments will only need to go to MIDA, MITI, Bank Negara Malaysia, So there is no another layer of approval. Bank Negara Malaysia is involved in regulating foreign direct investment in the services sector, especially in the Malaysia's banking industry, insurance industry, payment systems, and other relevant industries that relate to Financial Services Act. And we have a blueprint, financial sector blueprint, that seeks to open up financial services to foreign investors. Investors can have 100% equity on manufacturing, but in the financial sector, only some sectors have been opened up for full 100% equity. I think about 27 subsectors. The others have got varying degrees of opening up to foreign direct investments. For example, in insurance companies, Bank Negara Malaysia limits foreign ownership to only 70%. The other 30% must be owned locally. Foreign banks can open only 4 new branches, and there are other restrictions as to where you can open up these 4 new branches. If they're already there, it's good. But if you want to do any more, then you need to come back to Bank Negara Malaysia. MDAC, Malaysian Digital Economic Corporation, they too attract ICT companies to invest and develop cutting-edge digital and creative solutions. So they are involved in creating a digital economy, and they bring in foreign investments, primarily ICT companies. And of course, the Ministry of Finance is involved in public procurement. So there has been some relaxation in the services sector. We said manufacturing sector, 100%. But for a foreign investor to come and invest in the services sector like banking, insurance, logistics, computer, health, medical, tourism, etc., etc., there has been a gradual liberalization in the services sector since 2009. For example, restrictions on foreign investment in 27 services subsector, computer-related consultancies, tourism, freight transportation. These have been removed, 27. But there are other host of service sectors like law, for example, that has still not been opened up. And from 2011, 100% foreign ownership is allowed for investments in healthcare, retail, education, professional services, environmental, and courier services. But there are still some limits on foreign equity ownership, which is still a thorn in the flesh for foreign direct investors. You have opened up so many. You've opened up 100% manufacturing. You've opened up 27 services sector. Why the hesitation? Why not you open up everything else so that we can invest anywhere and have 100% ownership? So there are limits in telecommunications, financial services, and transportation. So let's see what these are. So from 2009, Malaysia allowed for acquisitions, mergers, and takeovers of local companies without Foreign Investment Committee approval. Now, the Foreign Investment Committee only enforces the 30% Bumiputra equity participation in investments in distributive trade, for example, retail distributors. So if you want to set up a supermarket, a hypermarket, then you would need Foreign Investment Committee approval, and that too, your equity participation is limited to up to 70%. But where services sectors have been opened up, like for example, the computer consulting, medical, in those cases, there is no foreign equity limit, but you would require the approval of related ministries. So you come into MIDA will say, okay, this sector has been liberalized. You want to do medical tourism, you want to invest in a hospital, very good. Please go and see the Ministry of Health. So if it's minerals, you will go and see the ministry involved in the mineral sector. If it is trade, you'll go and see MITI. So every ministry has the authority to approve investments in service sectors where there is no foreign equity limit. And the 1969 Ministerial Act, gives the related ministries broad discretionary powers to approve investment projects. So where these investments that are targeted, so the government targets that we want medical tourism, we want to promote healthcare, then those investors in those sectors can come to the Ministry of Health, for example, and negotiate better terms and incentives with those ministries. And Ministry of Health will say, okay, no problem, we will certify you. You can bring in so many doctors. We can allow you to take in doctors from certain countries, etc., etc. And they'll also help you to navigate the regulatory environment. They'll tell you how to go through and navigate the various regulations, how they can comply with the regulations that are in place. And they also have the discretion to waive some of the rules that might otherwise apply to these excuse me, to these investments. And these relate to investments where in sectors where there is no foreign equity limits. But in non-targeted industries, so we have a government target certain industries, healthcare, no problem, we will give you all the support. But in non-targeted industries that are not a critical area, not a strategic area, then in those cases, you would still need to get approval from the related ministry, assuming that that particular sector has removed all limits on equity ownership. But you might face greater bureaucratic obstacles. It's not a priority area, and if you still want to invest, then we'll be a bit more stringent in the application of the various rules and regulations. In telecommunications, we have 100% foreign equity participation in the application service providers since 2012. So people who are developing applications for your mobile telephony, for example, for those applications, you can set up a company with 100% foreign equity participation. But however, for network facilities providers and network service providers, so network facilities providers will be people like Telecoms Malaysia, and network service providers, people like Celcom, Axiata, DG, those licenses, even if they are given, you can only have 70% foreign participation. So in telecommunications, there is a strict control over 100% foreign equity participation, except for applications developers and providers. But sometimes FDIs are allowed a greater share of ownership. There's always a room for discretion. So MCMC might exercise his discretion under the 1969 Ministers Functions Act and give you, instead of 70, might give you 75, 80. But then how this discretion is exercised, foreign direct investors consider it rather opaque. They don't have very clear guidelines as to how they can go about getting more than 70%, and what is the reason, what is the rhyme, what is the logic of the ministries exercising their discretion to increase the share of foreign ownership. Excuse me. Because FDIs, if foreign investors say, if we know this guideline, then we can accordingly make our investments more attuned to what the nation requires, what the particular ministry insists on, and there will be greater transparency all around. But restrictions are still in force on the extent of foreign ownership in telecom. So foreigners cannot own more than 30% of telecoms or 5% for individual investors. So telecommunications is a strategic sector that we do not want to open up 100% to foreign equity participation. And that is the bone of contention to foreign investors. And they feel that they do not have control over their domestic acquisitions, and therefore they will surely score us poorly in the questionnaire that will be sent to them on do you have adequate control on your domestic acquisitions. Petronas, again, he said, controls all the oil and gas in the country. It is the sole custodian, but it allows for foreign participation. And the foreign participation takes the form of production sharing contract. So you can get into production sharing, and it requires foreign firms who are given up to 49% equity stake to work with local firms for oil services tenders. Petronas sets terms for upstream projects with foreign participation. So they still limit, set criteria as to how oil can be explored, for example. So that there is a massive control on the oil and gas sector vis-a-vis foreign ownership. Again, a very strategic resource. Then we have the financial sector blueprint. 2020, 11, 22, 2020 is going to end in a month's time, which seeks to open up financial services to foreign investors. So we have a financial sector blueprint, but foreign investors feel that there are no specific market opening commitments or timeline. When are you going to open this sector? When are you going to open that sector? So, and since 2029, the limit on foreign ownership in insurance companies has been raised to 70%. So I think that's good. 70% is better than 40%. And you still have majority control, although you don't have absolute control. And a higher percentage is possible. Again, there is a discussion to increase the percentage to own investment insurance companies by foreigners if the investment helps consolidate the industry rather than proliferating the industry. And under the 2012 Financial Services Act, new licenses if FDIs serve the national interest. So Bank Negara Malaysia can give new licenses for insurance companies if they serve the national interest, meaning that they advance the interests of the country, they strengthen the business ecosystem, they contribute to domestic employment, etc., etc. In terms of opening up foreign banks, Bank Negara currently only allows foreign banks to open 4 additional branches. If you're already there, good. But if you want to open up 4 more, then you cannot open a branch within 1.5 kilometers of an existing local bank, and they must do certain back office activities. So back office activities cannot be transferred overseas, but they must be done in Malaysia as a means to improving employment, as a means to improving the supply chain, value chain in offering these banks. And we have a whole smorgasbord of tax incentives in strategic areas. We have an array of tax incentives for manufacturing. We have pioneering status for manufacturing, agriculture, tourism sectors that gives you up to 10 years of tax breaks. Then we have a bio-nexus label for biotechnology sector. Then we have the MSc status for ICT and multimedia companies. So we have a whole host of tax incentives to bring in foreign direct investments. But the bone of contention, as I said, for foreign direct investments is, yes, these incentives are good, but we want full 100% control over our investments and our local acquisitions. So how do we overcome this policy uncertainty in acquisition and control of domestic companies? So basically, foreigners want increase the limits on foreign control. 2, make the whole process more transparent. So they require transparency on the regulations on foreign ownership. So what we could do is we can build their confidence by specifying the limits on foreign equity ownership across the telecommunications, financial services, and transportation sectors. Here we say, in the case of telecommunications, we say 100% for applications provider. For the other two, maximum 70. We can tell them, instead of saying maximum 70, just tell them 70. That's it. You can have, but that's up to 70 also is good. But perhaps what they want is to increase that limit. So instead of 70, now we tell them 80, for example. And I'm sure that will be a confidence booster to foreign direct investors in those sectors to come in droves to Malaysia compared to going to Indonesia, China, Vietnam, or Cambodia. And we saw that ministries have a discretion to exercise in terms of approving specific investment projects that relate to their ministry, for which there is no equity limits, foreign equity limits in the services sector. So yes, they can exercise discretion. Foreign direct investors say, we want more transparency. How do you exercise your discretion? What are the conditions? What are the criteria? In the case of the Bank Negara Malaysia, they have specified a number of criteria, albeit broadly, but I think a greater specificity of the guidelines and the manner in which discretion is exercised by the ministries will greatly enhance investor confidence in our country. And they also quibble that in public procurement, when they apply for tenders, they are sidelined. We do not know how true it is, but there's no smoke without fire, and this is what they say. They say they are preferred, local bidders are preferred to foreign suppliers. It could be because local bidders could be cheaper than them, or whatever the reason they feel that there should be greater transparency in public procurement. Tell us why we did not get this contract. And there are foreign quotas in public procurement. A foreigner can only apply for 30%, or this quota, this project only 30% foreigners can apply. But tell us how you are exercising these exceptions. Give us more transparency, give us more guidelines, give us more details into how you would decide on this 30% or 20% or 10%, and then we can adjust our bidding accordingly. So I think basically it's a question of building confidence through greater transparency. And of course, ultimately, it's about increasing the equity limits that have now been imposed in the strategic sectors of telecommunications, oil and gas, and other services sectors that have yet to be opened up, like logistics, for example. And then, of course, we need to liberalize telecommunications, oil and gas, banking, and insurance further. Telecommunications, we say 70%, increase it maybe to 80%. Oil and gas, 49%, maybe increase it to 60%. Banking and insurance, it's about insurance 70%, increase to 80 maybe. I mean, it's easier said than done. The relevant agencies like Petronas, Bank Negara will have to study to see that national, in our haste and desire to bring in foreign direct investments, we do not compromise our national interests. So there is a balance. It's a very tricky balance. No one knows for sure what is the exact precise equation between foreign control and national interest. So this balancing is something that ministries, the relevant ministries, will have to work out. On the one hand, enhancing investor confidence. On the other hand, ensuring the national interest is well protected. And then the gripe of the foreign investors is that we don't have any specific timelines in terms of opening up the markets on the on the services sector. Tell us when are you going to open up, say, an accounting firm, for example? When are you going to open up the legal sector, for example? And then we can strategize and get ready on the day of opening. We will submit our investments for speedy approval. And then, as we said, increase the limit 70% for network facilities providers, network service providers in telecommunications. Allow for more foreign branches. Again, easier said than done. If you bring in more foreign branches, our local branches might suffer because people might want to go to foreign branches given the fact that they've got a greater network across the whole world. It might be easier to do transactions across the world. And for that reason, they might not want to go as much to our local branches, local bank. So again, we need to balance within the interest of the investor who wants to open up more foreign banks and the interest of our local domestic banks. And of course, we need to do something about global international property rights. This is the bone of contention between America and China. America says China is stealing its intellectual rights, stealing its technology. Malaysia has been rated 32nd in place. So investors feel that they need stronger intellectual property protection. Yes, we're bringing in our investments, we're bringing in our technology, but we want to be sure that we have proprietary rights over our technology. Sorry. So, and of course, we need to promote good governance. Generally, investors will shy away from countries where there is corruption. In our case, we are not so very high like Singapore. Singapore is number one or number two in the rank, least corrupt. Whereas Malaysia is 61 out of 180. So we are somewhere midway. We are mediocre. We have good governance. At the same time, we are slacking in issues of integrity. And so I think if we can ensure that we rid ourselves with of corruption, we have integrity in the bureaucracy of approving investments, land, etc., licenses, permits. I think that will augur well to boost foreign direct investor confidence. Then investment promotion agencies also need to better align their foreign direct attraction and retention efforts with changing investor preferences. I spoke to an investor, and MIDA, again, this is apocryphal. It's hearsay. I mean, this is what an investor tells me, but it needs to be further attested to verify it. He says, MIDA says, please come to Malaysia and we will provide whatever you ask. So this investor came and said, we want 100 data scientists. And MIDA started to scratch its head. I mean, I'm just exaggerating. MIDA said, oh, 100 data scientists, we don't have it now, but can you give us another 5 years and then you can come? By then it's too late. This guy would have gone somewhere else. And there are so many other barriers. Some companies want to invest $8 million US. This is another investor told me we are coming in with $8 million US, not 8 million, 8 billion. All we want, and we will be employing 800 local employees. All we want is give us 50 expatriate visas, and they had great difficulty in getting those visas, so they moved over to Vietnam. So I think we need to be more sensitive to the needs and demands of FDIs. Of course, FDIs will ask for the world. We would need to be more sensitive and see what we can give and what we cannot. And so it's very important for us to offer a very unique value proposition to targeted investors. What is it that we can give that you cannot find elsewhere? We must make ourselves different. And of course, we need to target our incentives better. It must be time bound. We cannot say, if you come, we'll give you forever tax exemption. No. And then it must be tied to KPI. yes, you come in, we give you incentives, but we are giving you incentives because you're going to promote innovation, productivity, quality employment, and economic complexity. At the end of the year, we want to assess to see whether you have contributed to this to ensure that these incentives can be carried on to the subsequent year. And of course, we want to be a digital hub in Southeast Asia, so we need to attract investors on especially in digital investments, and where digital technologies are at the heart of their business model. So these are the agencies and these are the recommendations. I think we have gone through many of these recommendations, but this is a summary. We would not do it now, but this will be with the presentation for a leisurely browsing after the presentation is over. But most of it has been covered in the course of a presentation. And I thank you for this time, and I hope that I have been able to make a case for national interests and for investor control over their domestic acquisition. Thank you, and I'm prepared to take any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Datuk.
Welcome, sir.
While waiting for questions to come in from our participants, let me ask the first question. Maybe it's more of to get your opinion on this, Datuk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so as a result of the current COVID-19 pandemic, our government has introduced 40 short-term economic recovery measures, right? They are collectively called the Penjana. And in one of these 40 economic recovery measures, one of it is to stimulate the economy, and that's the initiative called Malaysia as an Attractive Horizon for Businesses.
Yes.
So, but this initiative or incentive is more to attract foreign companies to relocate their businesses into Malaysia, and to sort of provide tax incentives, so that to encourage the foreign companies to come to to bring their businesses to Malaysia, set up business in Malaysia. So, in your opinion, what kind of is this sufficient? Is it sufficient? Looking at the drop, the severe drop in FDI in Malaysia, like you mentioned, over the past several years, and also more so this year, this current times of uncertainty. So, can our government, apart from just giving tax incentives, what other initiatives can our government implement? Especially to the services sector, to a sector which requires more digitalization, higher technology, high tech, knowledge economy type of sector, to attract foreign investors to come in.
Very true. Thanks, Mr. Wong. A very deep, profound question. Yes, Penjana seeks to capture whatever foreign investments that are floating around to get them to come to our country. In fact, as a result of the trade spat between Malaysia, between the US and China, some 30 companies, foreign companies, were seeking to relocate away from China. Japan was giving, or is still giving, subsidies to draw them back to Japan. Many of the Japanese companies in China are being drawn back to Japan through subsidies. These companies are looking to Indonesia and Vietnam to relocate. So this is the ideal moment for us to get ourselves plugged in and get these companies that are relocating and telling them, hey, come to us. Number one, we have tax incentives. Of course, every country gives tax incentives. What else is your unique value proposition? Well, we have talent. Although we must admit that only 75% of our workforce is school leaving certificate. But the fact that they are educated, they can speak English, and we have now redoubled our efforts on TWAT, technical and vocational training. We say that we have a fantastic ecosystem. We have a political stability. Yes, you have a lot of political ructions, people trying to be the next government, etc., etc. But beyond that, there is an underlying political stability. The public service is very strong, and whatever happens at the political level, the public service will be able to carry the nation through. So in that respect, we have that stability that foreign direct investments can look for. Although it will be good if we can improve our political wrangling, and if we can have greater stability and on the political side, I think we'll be able to be in a better position to attract foreign direct investment. And more important, we have a business ecosystem that speaks for itself. We have good infrastructure, we have got ports, roads, we have talent, we have centralized institutions that have got a long history in bringing in foreign direct investments. MIDA has been bringing in investments from the 1970s. There's some 50 years. We've got 50 years of experience. We are there. MIDA is now trying to give end-to-end assistance. You come in, we'll carry you through till you are able to set up your plant or your factory. So I think in that respect, we have a good ecosystem. We're not saying that it's the best, but our cost of living is cheaper. Our wages are not that high. But as you said, Mr. Wong, we are going into a knowledge-based economy. We are going into a digital economy. We want to develop a digital economy, and this is where the crunch comes in. We don't have state-of-art, cutting-edge digital connectivity. We say our broadband is broad, but actually it's not so broad. So if we can improve on our broadband connectivity, I think Singapore has been number one for many years until it was recently pipped by Taiwan. Taiwan, Singapore, South Korea, wherever you go, you have internet connection. In our case in Malaysia, I think we're getting up to speed, but we are still not there yet. And I think this internet connectivity is something that we need to redouble our efforts to ensure that the otherwise good ecosystem that we have can be furthered to give greater confidence to the investors to come in when the economy perks up and gets better in the coming years. And then, of course, we also have very good clusters. Clusters are where competitors get together. They are in a particular geographical location where you have everything that the company wants: logistics, talent pool, R&D, government institutes. Everything is housed in that particular geographical location. Excuse me. For example, the electronics and electrical cluster, for example, in Penang, Klang Valley, Batu Pahat, oil and gas cluster in Pangerang. So likewise, we've got so many clusters. Furniture cluster in Batu Pahat, medical tourism in Penang, Kuala Lumpur, Johor Bahru, tourism clusters in Langkawi, Penang. So we've got so many clusters that make companies to be more competitive, because everything is within that particular cluster, that they don't have to go and look for talent or for logistics, for supplies, or they're not far away from the ports to incur extra expenses. So I think that is also a very good thing going for us in terms of our ecosystem. And then, of course, we have got very good macroeconomic policies. Number one, our fiscal policy, except for the current COVID-19, it has been relatively very good. We have been trying to reduce the budget deficit. In fact, we should have reduced it to zero by 2020 until this COVID struck. But even then, our limit for borrowing is only 60%, and the World Bank says 60%. You can borrow public debt up to 60% of GDP is okay. because up to 60% your debt is sustainable. You can service your debt and it will not harm economic growth. So we have got good monetary policy, especially now. Interest rates are cheap. Investors can come, borrow, and set up their plants. The economy is flushed with liquidity. And fiscal policy, we are trying to pump prime the economy. We are trying to boost consumer demand. So that fiscal monetary macroeconomic policy also is a plus factor for us. So I think with these, we should be able to attract some of those companies that are relocating out of China. But until we fix our internet broadband to the levels that we see in South Korea, Taiwan, or Singapore, maybe we may say that it's not a fair comparison. Singapore is a small country, Taiwan is smaller than us, South Korea is still not so, yeah. But the point is, small or big, if you want to be in the game, then we have to tremendously improve our broadband connection. Sorry, sir, I'm a bit long-winded.
No problem, Datuk. I totally agree with you, Datuk, regarding internet bandwidth, internet coverage, and following up on your opinion on that. Definitely to have to participate in a more what do you call a bigger in terms of participation in a knowledge economy, in a high-tech related industry, and also in providing digital economy, digitalized services. Definitely the internet connection, internet availability is very important to me, I think. So in line with that, what are your thoughts on liberalizing further? I mean, from our Ministry of Communications and Multimedia, should we be liberalizing further these NFT and NSP licenses, especially, so that we can speed up our internet coverage, especially in the suburban and rural areas, and also increase the bandwidth speed from 3G to 4G speeds, from 4G to 5G speeds, and at the same time also reduce the subscription cost to the right, with more competition. And also you mentioned in your presentation that we want to be a digital hub in Southeast Asia, and to be a digital hub, you definitely need better internet or broadband services. So what are your thoughts on that? Liberalizing further the telecommunications sector and the licenses related to telecommunications.
Very good. I cannot agree with you more, Mr. Wong, that we need to open them up, because with the current existing capacity, the current players in the multimedia industry, they cannot possibly cope to extend coverage across the whole wide country and bridge the digital divide and make everyone a digital citizen. So if we want to enhance our internet capacity and our broadband width, then it should go beyond infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Yes, now we are putting in more fiber optic cables, but to do that, we need foreign investors to come and invest. Also, now that the government's finances have been crippled by the 4 stimulus packages, we need a fresh injection of foreign capital in this particular sector to accelerate the development of broadband and the narrowing or elimination of the digital divide. We could see this very obviously during the pandemic. When the pandemic came, schools were considered non-essential, they were closed down, and students had no access to education. Then, of course, the Ministry of Education scrambled and put some material over the internet, email to them. But in the latest survey done by the Ministry of Education, 40% of the students did not have access to internet. And there was this case of Viviana, who was sitting for an exam in May, and she had to climb a tree in the rural part of Sabah to get an internet connection. So if that is the deplorable state of our internet connection, then of course the answer is obvious. We need to bring in more foreign investors into this field, and the only way we can bring them in is to enlarge their ownership in within the country. True, I agree with you. They will bring in fresh technology, new technology. In fact, I think we are working with Huawei in that respect to bring in 5G. But and going on to 5G, when in some parts of our country they're only still operating on 2G, 3G. So we need to have a blast of upgrading in digital connectivity by opening up for greater foreign direct investments in that field.
Yeah, that's my thinking as well, Datuk. Yeah, because if we don't have foreign investors coming in, I think our rate of improving our internet connectivity and also coverage will be too slow. To enable us to take advantage of this digital economy, knowledge economy, and the industrial revolution 4.0. Currently, many applications require high-speed internet nowadays. Especially during this time of COVID-19 pandemic, where people have to work remotely or work from home and have meetings over the internet. So we definitely need high-speed connections.
Exactly.
There are still no questions yet coming from the participants. So let me just ask maybe a last question, and then we can end our talk today, Datuk. I think you mentioned during your talk that Malaysia generally Malaysia is an FDI-friendly country, maybe except for certain sectors where we want to maintain control. We don't want to liberalize totally. And I think over the years, since 2009, we have liberalized certain subsectors you mentioned, like tourism and probably hypermarkets also. Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe not 100% equity, but increased the percentage of equity of foreign investors. So my question is there a roadmap, like a long-term roadmap or plan by MITI or a different ministry in our government to open up our different subsectors in our economy to foreign investors, like a plan, by this year we want to allow a certain percentage of equity participation by foreign investors for this particular sector, and so on. Is there a roadmap in Malaysia today? Do we need one? What's your opinion on that?
Yes. In fact, when we saw the financial services blueprint for 2011 to 2020, there is a blueprint. What the foreign investors quibble about is, yes, you have a blueprint, you have plans, you have strategies, but you don't have timelines. You don't have specific targets when you are going to open up a particular sector that has yet to be opened up. You have opened up 27 subsectors where we can have 100% foreign equity participation. Thank you very much. But what about the other 20, 30 subsectors that are waiting to be opened up? You said you're going to open, but when? How? Can you give us a specific? Yes, we have plans, but we don't have any specific timelines for the opening up of these services sector. They all still remain as commitments. And now, as the whole nation is focused on bringing COVID-19 to heal, this has somewhat gone to the backwaters. The plans are there, but the specific deadlines by which time this should be done, this sector is up for opening up by 2025. That hard targets are not there.
I see. Okay, thanks. Very interesting talk by you, Datuk. I think with no further questions or no questions from our participant, just hang on. Let me just do a last check. Yeah, I don't have any questions from participants. So I think with that, we have come to the end of our talk today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking precious time out from your busy schedule to participate in this webinar. And thank you very much, Datuk, for a very captivating talk and for sharing with us your insights on the great importance of this rebuilding foreign investor confidence in our country in these times of uncertainty. With that, I wish everyone good day and have a productive rest of the week ahead. Stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye. See you all
Thank you very
again.
much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.